So once again, the Islam denies and dislikes the idea of GDP, that the wealth shall be counted more or less in general for all inhabitants in one country, with no consideration whatsoever to the individuals. For instance, in a country like Egypt, where you have you have at least 4 million individuals living in the graveyards, in Egypt. At least 15% lives under the minimum of how poverty is defined. And I read for some months ago that 90% of humanity is living on less than $10 per day. 90% of humanity is living on less than $10 per day. So when you hear that this person or that person has $10 billion, $20 billion, $40 billion, and I think that 90% doesn't have as much as this guy, and we're talking about funding. So something is definitively wrong. The resources, we get back to the public ownership. The resources of the earth are given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the real owner of everything. He is the real owner of all property. But yet He has given us the right to own within ourselves and to dispose of what we own. But we have to bear in mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He spoke to the angels, when He said, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. When your Lord said to the angels that I'm going to install on the earth a person in charge of it, how did the angels respond? They said, تَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. Shall you install on it a person in charge of it? Though you see that the beings, and on that day apparently there were only animals living on the earth, so the angels were referring to these creatures, that the new creature will be something similar. And what is he going to do? Shed blood and kill? And why not us? We glorify you, we obey you, we worship you. قَالَ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So he said to them that I know what you don't know. And then he created Adam. So the role of man on this earth is not the role of a predator, is not the role of give me and I'm not going to pay or do anything in return. It's a role of a person in charge of. You're in charge of the earth. So in order to be a good person responsible for this earth, you have to obey the commandments of your Lord. You have to practice your responsibility in accordance with the will of your Creator. And once you deviate from the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown you through His guidance, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who came with the revelation, once you deviate, of course, you will hear such news as that there are millions starving in Ethiopia, country of the forests, and yet you have billions starving there. You will hear about the millions and once again millions of poor people in South Africa, the richest country of gold, in Congo, the richest country of diamond, and yet millions of people are unemployed, poor, and without any hope. So Islam has decided, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided that no natural resources, no oil, no diamonds, no gold, no silver, no natural gas shall be owned by individuals. All of that is equally and justly shared and owned by humanity, by all human beings. And that's why the Islamic State is forbidden to allow any individual to utilize any of these natural resources. Yet, the Islamic State has to take care of the natural resources, extract them, utilizing them, and selling them, either to the individuals in order to distribute the revenues and incomes of them, once again among the individuals, or to sell, to export them to other countries, and once again to distribute the wealth or the incomes and revenues of them among the inhabitants of the Islamic State. There is no difference between a Muslim and a non-Muslim in the Islamic State in terms of getting all his or her needs covered, the basic needs, or when it comes to the distribution of wealth. So you're not discriminated because you're not a Muslim in the Islamic State. You are a human being. You're an individual. You're a citizen of this state. So you have rights. And those rights have to be fulfilled. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he warned us that if a dhimmi, if a non-Muslim citizen of the Islamic State is being discriminated or being badly treated, then the Prophet will be his defendant on the Day of Judgment. And who is the accused? It's either you or me, as a Muslim. When Islam distributes wealth, it does it because this is how reality should be. Because we are in charge of the earth. We are responsible for the earth. And if you act as a responsible person, of course you will not act as a predator whose only and mainly aim is to exploit, to gain, of course without paying, or with paying as little as much. And this is what we see today, that people are getting exploited. For instance, about the question of lands, you see that there are lands, and you see that there are families living there, working for the landowner, the landlord of that land, and yet receiving, I wouldn't call it salaries, because they are so shameless to pay so little that these payments cannot in any words be described as salaries. So Islam says, for instance, as a solution to this problem, that if the person, about distribution of wealth, that if this person, if this landlord doesn't use his land, for either rural issues or industrial, and he keeps it unused for 3 years, then